Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to another edition of DIY Money.
DIY money.
What's shaking, Logan?
What are you shaking? What's shaking with you?
Well, let's just cut
Yeah,
right
I
through the
agree.
nonsense and let's go right to today's subject matter. First and foremost, some housekeeping odds and ends. Follow us on all the social DIY Money podcast. The Tribe is back in action if you're not in there. And you're still on Facebook, just look up DIY Money Tribe. Is it DIY Money Tribe?
DIY Money Tribe.
DIY Tribe. DIY Money Tribe. Yeah, I think that's what you search. You'll hit us up. You got a request. I'll let you in. It's a great group. Would love to have you involved in that. DIY Money blog, DIYmoney.org. The blog is rocking. I mean, just everywhere. We're like expanding
all over the place.
tremendously.
Love it.
So we appreciate all the new love. Send us podcast questions. We'll get back to the questions, I promise. Podcast at DIYmoney.org. That's podcast at DIYmoney.org. If we use it on the show, we send you a $25 Amazon gift card. I feel like we haven't been saying that. I feel like we've forgotten to tell people that they get a $25 Amazon gift card. All right. We've been on this mission, which really was sparked by a headline that we read where now there's 11% of FHA mortgages, which is 6 million Americans, are behind on their mortgages. And it's not like a 15-day behind. This is probably like 3 months behind. This is preliminary foreclosure status. This is not good. And things can change, right? The economy could turn around. There could be some things happening, but the United States economy moves kind of like a tanker. And at least right now, that tanker is not headed in the right direction. And we see this. We're watching this every day. We're watching the data. Markets are ebbing and flowing. This doesn't always correlate, by the way, with markets continuing to go down. Maybe the decline in the markets have been pricing this in. I don't know. That's another food for thought. But it doesn't change your investment strategy is what I'm trying to say or anything regarding that. But it has motivated us, I would dare say, to really come back and hit upon some of the important areas of money in your life so that you don't fall susceptible to some of the challenges that many people are facing right now. And one of those, this is qualitative, okay? So this is hard to kind of find a little meat and potatoes, but we can each share some stories. And it's the old adage of keeping up with the Joneses. And I would say that for your generation, you and I are 20 years apart, so basically close to a generation apart. Your generation is more susceptible to this due to social media, influencers that are doing things, your friends, the access to credit, the access to shopping and buying things on your phone in a nanosecond. So I want to hear from you, because I know you've been super disciplined. So how are you and your wife avoiding this trap?
Yep. Number one, I'm not on social media. I mean, number one, I do not get on social media. Maybe every once in a while I'll get on Facebook or something to check on family and friends and things like that, except for our DIY Money social media.
Tribe. Yeah,
of course. But I just don't get on it because if you get on social media and you look at it, if you go through 10 people's things, 5 of them will be somewhere someone is, something they've bought, new car, new house, whatever, and somewhere that they're spending tons of money because that is how our generation is presenting themselves. They are presenting themselves through money or things that they have. And it drives me crazy. And I can't do it because if I want to stay super disciplined, which is kind of the theme of this entire episode is staying disciplined, I can't see it. I can't see it constantly. And when I talk to my friends, I don't talk about money. I avoid it. And I think you have to do that because I see things on social media constantly where someone's like, oh, I got a new truck and my husband got a new boat and we got, a new house that we just bought and we have all these things. And that's kind of the message of social media. And it's always presented in a way of, these are things I own. It's not presented in a way of, hey, these are all the things we just bought and this is how much we owe the bank for those things. So that I think is a really crucial part of it.
So when my wife and I were first married, there was not a lot of social media around, which was nice. We were married in 2004, and that was leading into what ultimately became the great financial crisis. And the reason is that in that moment in time, there was this idea that everyone should have the ability to own their own home. So Alan Greenspan was the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and interest rates were artificially low after the dot-com crash, and they were kept that way. And it created a housing boom that was sort of fueled by this idea, as I just mentioned, that everybody should have a right to own a home. And we're going to fulfill the American dream. So it started as economic stimulus to get us out of the dot-com economic recession, and it morphed into this like patriotic sort of position. We're going to keep rates low because it's good for the economy, and every American should have the ability to buy a home. This morphed into the ability to get a loan regardless of your financial position. Now, I know people who to this day blame, fat cat bankers, Wall Street, etc., for the financial crisis when it was everyone. It was the person who did not have the right, was not in the right financial position, had not been disciplined, should never have gotten a mortgage. That person applying and thinking, oh, I'll be fine because I'll be able to sell it down the road for more money. I'll be able to refinance in the future, et cetera, as well as the mortgage lender saying, oh, no, you don't need to tell us what your income is. You don't need to tell us what your job is. Oh, you don't have a job? That's okay. We still can finance this loan. All the way up to Wall Street, who was repackaging these loans and reselling them and creating this economic machine that just propagated this whole thing. Everyone was at fault, in my opinion. This is my opinion. Everyone was at fault. During this time, my wife and I, we moved into a starter home that I think was $52,000, okay, on Appian Way in Lexington, Kentucky. 3 doors down, I think the third or fourth night we were in, there were gunshots in our neighborhood. My wife was livid, okay? But it's what we could afford. It was what we could afford. I think our mortgage payment was like $400 or $600 or something like that. And it was a starter home. It was very difficult to be young professionals in that home when many of our friends were buying brand new, beautiful 2-story, new neighborhoods, whatever. Clearly something they shouldn't have been doing or couldn't afford, but they were doing it anyways. And we chose not to. We also drove probably 20-year-old vehicles at that time. So they were maybe 15 years. And they were in the 85, 90. I drove like a Ford Escape or something like that. I don't know. It was this awful car. But we had these automobiles, but they were paid for. They weren't always working well. We sometimes had to carpool. They certainly weren't pretty, and they weren't the new car, but it's what we could afford. And it was very difficult. I'm not going to lie. There were many times that I was like, I hate this. I want to live in a new house. I want a new car. And then we would look at each other and we would say, no, we want to get out of debt. And we want to pay this off. And we want to pay that off. And sometimes I would lose it. And my wife would be like, babe, we got it. Everything's fine. It's going to be fine. We're good. As long as we got each other. I mean, she was wonderful. There were times my wife would lose it. And she'd like, well, I just want to go. They're all going to the beach. Why can't we go to the beach? I'm like, we don't have the money to go to the beach. We're trying to pay this off. We'll just put it on the credit card. I'll be like, babe, we got it. We're going to be fine.
And you were a team the whole time. Everything you've just said, you were a team.
That's my point. We were a team. Now, fast forward to today, okay? First of all, I'm so glad we did that. It put us in the financial position to take risk. In my story, it's not necessarily about, we paid off the debt and then we created all this, savings and investments, and that's how our wealth was created. In my story, it was we paid off debt so that we could take business risk, calculated risk. We could try things. We could become an entrepreneurial household. And then the business was successful and there was opportunity there. I would have never been able to do that if I had had all the debt. But when you fast forward now or I would say over the last 10 years, having kids, I see this. Forget social media. You don't have to be on social media to fall into the Joneses trap with what your kids are doing. The gear they have, the travel you take, the trips you go on. You don't have to do everything that everybody is doing. You can say no. It's very difficult. Will you disappoint your kids in the short term? Yes, you will. They'll be frustrated that they're not at the beach with their friends, or that they can't play travel ball, or that they can't join the country club or whatever. But the reality is that if you do it with purpose and intention, and you save that money and you put yourself in a better financial position, they will remember that as a positive, not a negative. I promise you this.
Well, and I think it's huge that you said early on, those first 10 years or so of marriage, you developed the discipline. You developed the discipline with your wife, and you did it together. And now when you have more and you have significantly more margin, you still have the underlying discipline. So you're not worried about the day-to-day because you have the discipline that's already been established in the past. So if you're not disciplined, which a lot of people aren't right now, start getting disciplined. Start learning it together and developing those skills early on, because then it becomes a whole lot easier later on down the road. You still have the things, you still have the temptation to keep up with the Joneses, but it's a lot easier to say no when you can look back and say, well, yeah, we lived in Appian Way and paid $55,000 for a house. The other thing I want to say, you got to be careful. As a country right now, we buy payments. We don't buy the actual thing. We buy payments. So a house is a little bit different because almost everybody buys it as a payment, right? But cars or, even DoorDash now, you can spread out on a payment stream. You can spread out almost anything on a payment stream. Credit cards. Make sure you know the dollar amount that you're buying. If you're buying a car, why are you buying a $10,000 car? It's not, I'm buying a $400 payment. You're not buying a payment. You're buying a car. And if you're buying because of a payment, then you're going to pay a whole lot more for that thing than what you're originally buying it for, what that headline number is. Because if you buy a $10,000 car for a $500 a month payment, you're probably paying upwards of $15,000 for that car.
It's a very good point. Knowing the debt structure, knowing the payments, et cetera. And it does, circling it back around, if you can take a deep breath and not have to be keeping up with the Joneses and like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, you then have the ability to explore more of those things. You have the ability to explore, again, what it is you're buying, the amount you're paying, et cetera. But we are in this environment. I want to caution people who have been listening to this, and maybe you need to send this on to a friend, or maybe you're listening to this and you have some kids that are like, they need to hear this. I caution you not to pull into your garage tonight and come in with guns a-blazing and declare that, there's no more vacations, you're out of summer ball, we're not doing this, et cetera. Have a family meeting. Let's dialogue where things can be cut, because a lot of times, you don't want to do more damage psychologically right now than good. You want to go in as a team, whether that's you and your wife, whether your husband or your spouse or your partner, bringing your kids involved and dialoguing and say, okay, where can we look at avoiding this rat race that we're in and cut back? And you might be surprised what some kids say or what some of the folks say. So again, a little more qualitative, nothing to do with, putting money away here, build margin there. But one of the biggest detriments we're seeing right now is just people keeping up with the Joneses. And it's something you've got to avoid if you want to be financially successful. Remember, friends, the secret to wealth is pretty simple. Live on less than you make, invest the rest, and do so for a very long time. Make it a great one.